Hello all, my name is Jamie Moore and welcome to my presentation about human immunity. In this slide, these are the learning objectives that I will be covering. Infection can be defined as being the invasion of the body by microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses and parasites that are not normally present within the human body. There are four main cases. Infectious disease typically have one of these four. Bacteria, viruses, fungi or parasites. There are two main ways of transmission, direct and indirect contact. Firstly, direct contact. This is broken into three categories. Person-to-person contact. This can be transferred in a number of ways, such as touching, kissing, coughing or sneezing, or through sexual contact. Animal-to-person occurs in uninfected person is bitten or scratched by an infected animal. It can also occur through the contact with the waste product of animals such as feces or urine. Mother to unborn child occurs through the pregnancy, and the mother can pass the infections through the umbilical cord to the unborn child. Indirect contact can occur when someone sneezes onto an inanimate object, which is then later touched by a non-infected person. Insect bites are a common transfer method in some parts of the world. Most commonly is malaria with the mosquito bite. These are known as vectors. Contaminated food such as uncooked meat or unwashed salad. The skin forms part of the system called the integumentary system. It is broken down into three sections: the epidermis, the dermis and the subcutaneous layer. The skin is the largest organ of the human body. The epidermis provides the initial mechanical barrier against the external environment in the form of waterproofing coating. The epidermis prevents or at least impedes penetration of mechanical organisms, chemical irritants or toxins, as well as absorbing and blocking solar and ionized radiation. As long as the skin remains unbroken, it provides the function of being the body's first line of defense, as you can see by the photo here. The digestive system has a series of effective barriers against infection, including stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, bile, and intestinal secretions. Its powerful acidic and alkaline secretions act to protect the system. The pH of the stomach acids is generally too low for the bacteria to survive. Similarly, in the small intestine, the pH is much higher, but still sufficient to destroy the pathogens. There are exceptions, such as typhoid and cholera. The second line of defense is an inflammatory response. This is due to the injury to the skin or infection. The primary physical effect of the inflammatory response is for the blood circulation to increase around the infected area. The cell walls surrounding the infected area develop gaps. This allows the immune system response blood cells to pass. At the site of the infection, a large supply of proteins and other various types of cells fuel the immune system. And finally, the body heat around the infected area will increase, which itself can in fact have an effect of an antibiotic effect. What are antigens and pathogens? Well, a pathogen is an organism that causes disease. Pathogens can be bacteria or viruses, but can also be some protozoans and fungi. Anything that's too small to be seen with the naked eye and that can cause an infection is termed as a pathogen. Antigens or immunogens are substances or toxins in your blood that trigger your body to fight them. They can be a type of molecule including proteins, carbohydrates, nucleic acids or fats. A pathogen often needs an antigen to infect the body in the first place. Commonly is a protein on the virus, such as the influenza. The body's third line of defense is an acquired immunity. This is not present at birth, instead is learned. Acquired immunity is essentially a learned response from the body's immune system, determining the best way to attack each antigen and begin to develop a memory for that antigen. Often called specific immunity because its immune system tailors to its attacks to a specific antigen that the body has previously encountered. It has the ability to learn, adapt, and remember. Artificially acquired immunity can be conferred by two mechanisms: actively, intentionally exposed to a foreign antigen in a vaccine, and passively, which is introduced preformed into the body to generate a protective immune activity. An example of a natural passive immunity is a newborn receiving antibodies via breast milk from the mother. Leukocytes, or most commonly known as white blood cells, are a key element of the immune system and cells involved in defending the body against infections and foreign bodies. There are 5 types of leukocytes, which are all produced in bone marrow. These include neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. The acquired immune system in humans is responsible for the destruction of pathogens once they have entered the body. During the first exposure to a pathogen, the acquired immunity system first learns how to attack and destroy the pathogen. Initially, it is ineffective against the infections it is not previously encountered, but once it's created a response, the protective response in future is made quicker and with greater force. The cells of the acquired immune system are mainly the B cells and T cells. Immunoglobulins are known as antibodies, which are proteins that are bound to antigens. Antibodies have many uses within the body. These include targeting the infection, recruitment of immune cells, neutralization of toxins, and the removal of antigens. The typical immunoglobulin is made up of 4 chains. 2 of the 4 chains have slightly greater mass, so the immunoglobulin molecule can be said to comprise 2 heavier chains and 2 lighter chains. These are arranged in a Y-shaped configuration as illustrated here. There are 5 main types of immunoglobulins, the first being IgN, which is most abundant in the white blood cells. It is the only type that is transferred across the placenta from the mother to the fetus, providing the unborn child with a protection from disease. Secondly is IgA, playing an important role in the cellular defense of the soft, moist mucosal surfaces of the body, such as the mouth. Thirdly is IgM. The immunoglobulin has a different structure, comprised of 5 normal immunoglobulins joined to the base. This is the first to be synthesized in an antibody response. Fourth is IgE. This molecule is only present in low levels of healthy individual. These increase in response to a parasitic infection or allergic reaction. Too much IgE activity can cause hay fever. Lastly is IgD. IgD functions as a B cell antigen receptor and may participate in B cell maturation, maintenance, activation, and silencing. Self-tolerance is the immune system's ability to distinguish between self and non-self, therefore enabling only the non-self to be attacked. The immune system achieves this goal through the mechanisms of antigens. 2 of the most important factors in allowing the immune system to distinguish between self and non-self are the major histocompatibility complexes I and II, or MCH1 and MCH2. Along with the human leukocyte antigen gene complex, human cells usually display specific types of antigens, which the immune system recognizes as being self and deals with accordingly. When the immune system encounters the antigen of the red blood cell on its surface, it will not attack it. Or signal it to be attacked. This antigen is recognized as self. The immune system does not have a single or constant level of response to foreign antigens, as the level of response varies significantly. Hypersensitivity is an immune disorder and is categorized as an exaggerated, unnecessary immune response. An important example of hypersensitivity is allergies. An external agent provokes an unnecessary defense reaction. Examples of these are pollen and hay fever, or peanut and food allergies. The second example is autoimmunity. In this case, the immune system attacks the cell's organs or other structures in its own body, mistaking them for foreign elements. As a result, these particular organs become inflamed and are damaged. Now we're going to talk about the rejection of transplanted organs. But first we should look at what an organ transplantation is. An organ transplantation is a medical procedure in which an organ is removed from one body and then placed in the body of a recipient to replace a damaged or missing organ. However, the immune system can become a barrier to the transplantation process. This is due to the immune system creating effective mechanisms to combat foreign agents. When a person receives an organ from someone else during the transplant surgery, that receiving person's immune system may recognize it as foreign. This often occurs because the immune system detects an antigen of the body, of the cell of an organ which is different. There are 3 types of rejection. Hyperacute rejection occurs a few minutes after the transplant when the antigens are completely unmatched. The tissue must be removed right away and the recipient will not die. This type of rejection is seen when the recipient is given the wrong type of blood. For an example, a person is given A blood when he or she is a type B. Acute rejection may occur any time from the first week of the transplant to 3 months after. All recipients have the same amount of acute rejection. Finally is chronic rejection. This can take place over many years. The body's constant immune response against the new organ slowly damages the transplanted tissues or organ. Now we're going to look on to autoimmune disorders. The first disorder I'm going to be talking about is rheumatoid arthritis. It is a condition where your immune system attacks its own joints. The main symptom of rheumatoid arthritis are joint pain, swelling and stiffness, as well as other problems affecting their joints. Some people with rheumatoid arthritis are have more general symptoms, such as tiredness and a lack of energy, high temperature, sweating, a poor appetite, or even weight loss. This disease may also have flare-ups and remissions. Treatments include medicine that is taken over long term to relieve symptoms and slow the progression of the conditions, physiotherapy and surgery to correct any joint problems that may have been developed. Other autoimmune system disease is lupus. Lupus is a disease that occurs when the body's immune system attacks your own tissues and organs. Inflammation caused by lupus can affect many different body systems, including your joints, skin, kidneys, blood cells, brain, hearts, and lungs. Lupus can be difficult to diagnose because of its signs and symptoms often mimic those of other ailments. The most common signs and symptoms include fatigue, fever, joint pain or stiffness, butterfly-shaped rash on the face that covers the cheeks, shortness of breath and headaches. Potential triggers include sunlight, infections and medications. Treatments include anti-inflammatory medicines like ibuprofen, hydroxychloroquine for fatigue, and steroid tablets or injections. Now we're going to talk about immune response to vaccination. But first we should define what vaccination is. Vaccination involves exposing the body's immune system to a weakened or harmless version of the pathogen in order to stimulate white blood cells to produce antibodies with the intention of providing immunity against that specific pathogen. Vaccines can contain live pathogens, harmless fragments of the pathogen, toxins produced by pathogens, and dead pathogens. Vaccines are used to initiate the production of memory cells without causing the infection. There are 2 main types of vaccines. Live vaccines are derived from viruses or bacteria which are weakened in the laboratory. When the live vaccine is used, a relatively small dose of the virus or bacteria is given, which replicates in the body and creates enough virus or bacteria to stimulate an immune response. Inactivated vaccines are vaccines which are produced by growing a bacteria or virus in a culture media, then inactivating it with heat and or chemicals. Inactivated vaccines are not themselves alive, so cannot replicate. Therefore, these vaccines cannot cause disease from infection. Inactivated viruses tend to require multiple doses. In general, the first dose does not produce protective immunity, but only primes the immune system for future dose. A protective immune response develops after the second or third dose. Immunological memory is an ability of the immune system to respond to a pathogen that is previously encountered quicker and more effectively than the first encounter. The primary response is when a pathogen is encountered for the first time, which is the primary response. It takes time for the antigen to be identified by the B lymphocytes and for the appropriate antibody to be produced by the plasma cells, which allows time for the infection to take hold and cause then associated symptoms. The secondary response is when the same pathogen is encountered for the second time. The memory cells recognize this pathogen and produce high quantities of antibodies, which often fights off the infection before symptoms are seen. Now we're going to talk about the benefits of vaccinations. Immunizations and vaccinations help protect serious disease. Viral diseases cannot be cured with antibiotics and can only be controlled by immunization. Vaccinations can eradicate disease, an example being smallpox as of 1979. It also prevents childhood mortality. Before the introduction of vaccines, childhood deaths were more common from diseases such as measles, polio, and whooping cough. Although these diseases still exist, vaccinations provide a great protection against serious complications from these infections. Measles was first vaccinated in the UK in the late 1960s with the introduction of the MMR vaccine in 1988. After 2 doses of the MMR, around 99% of people will be protected against measles and rubella. If we compare measles death from 1940 to present, we can see that the vaccines had against measles in the UK. In 1940, there were 857 deaths in recent data. From 2020, there were only 1 death, which was an adult having a late effect of measles. This provides, on a global scale, the benefits of immunization and vaccination programs worldwide, ranging from savings in healthcare to not treating this disease, and extends life expectancy and reduces death. We're going to look at the concept of herd immunity. Firstly, we need to remember that a contagious disease is spread from one person to another. When a high percentage of the population is vaccinated, it's more difficult for the contagious disease to spread because there are few people within the population who can become infected. An example is if someone with measles is surrounded by people who are vaccinated against measles, the disease cannot easily be passed on. As a result, it will quickly disappear without having widespread effects. Herd immunity can prevent and stop the spread of contagious disease in a given community. It is particularly crucial for protecting people who cannot be vaccinated, including children who are too young to be vaccinated, people with immune system problems, and those who are too ill to receive vaccines, such as some people who are having cancer treatments. Many vaccination programs exist in the UK for children and adults to ensure that the vaccination for influenza is made convenient and as accessible as possible to prevent it being widely spread. Children are vaccinated through the various stages throughout their childhood, which are carried out by healthcare professionals, whether it's a nurse or their GP. There are 3 main factors which affect vaccine uptake. These are reasonable, logical, but complex at the same time. The first being a lack of trust in organisations and individuals who promote vaccine uptake. To combat this, they use trusted messengers to provide information. Secondly is a lack of cultural and linguistically appropriate information. To combat this, they tailor the message both culturally and linguistically to ensure relevant issues are covered. Lastly is the inconvenience of location and timings of vaccination appointments. To combat this, they are providing flexible venues and times for vaccinations. Here are the references I used in this presentation. Thank you for your time.